All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to be doing a quick lesson on, a video that has just surfaced recently where you had, a guy, pretty much record how, he and, a total of, 400 families, how they're all, hidden in a mountain, which is biblical prophecy, that people would do this in the last days, which we're in, and he just showing how, they've, gathered all of their things, and hid themselves, before our hell breaks loose, which, is coming very soon. We don't know how soon, but we know that all hell is going to break loose very soon, So I'm just going to play this clip and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And before I play this clip, I'm going to read, this fair use disclaimer. It says, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. So, right, so this clip I'm going to play, is being used strictly for educational purposes only. I'm not making any money off of anyone else's content, so fair use, fair use, fair use. Let's get into it.
Oh, they doing this for real, y'all. Hey, I don't know what movie told us about this. I remember seeing this in the movie, but they already got families moving into the underground bunkers, bro. Look at this, man. This man says there's about 400 families moving into this mountain somewhere, undisclosed location. Look at this, bro. All these RVs and these trucks, people pulling up. Look at this.
The operation underground storage has begun. All the vehicles are moving in. We got the families moving into place. This is the mine where we're going to be held up for months. We're preparing, man. I told you, we had to get ready for what was coming. So, for our families and stuff, food storage is good up. We're packed up pretty tight in here, but it's going to be good to go, man. I mean, better safe than sorry. So we're getting loaded up. Everybody's moving in. We have different families in different sections. Right on. You gotta be prepared. We've reinforced this just in case of any blast up above. We are literally under a mountain here. You gotta be ready for what's to come.
The boats. Where y'all going?
Like I said, we're packed in a little bit tight. We're gonna make this work. About 400 families down here. Here we go. Wish us luck.
So now you have regular people moving into undisclosed underground locations. And I've been said that these so-called elites, whatever, they already moved under the ground. The people we are seeing now, they are not the original elites, bro. Why y'all think they look so different? So is something getting ready to happen this year? Because they're moving in right now. Let me know what y'all think about this video, bro. The shit is here, man. Let's continue to get it. Peace in.
About 400 families down here. All right, here we go. Wish us luck. If you can, take cover while they're still.
Oh, they do.
So, as you can see, you have those individuals that, that are in the bunker, which is most likely hidden in the mountain somewhere. That says about 400 families. And most likely they're all Edomites, right? And my first thought when I seen this clip is, well, what's going to happen when you run out of food, when you run out of water? They're going to tear each other apart. They're going to cannibalize each other, man, And this is the reality of the situation that we're all in, because even though it's called Jacob's trouble, because Jacob, referring to the 12 tribes, are going to be in trouble. But what? You other nations are going to be in trouble too. No one is going to be able to escape from the judgment that is about to be poured out upon the planet Earth, especially here in America, aka Babylon the Great. You know, you can't hide. And that's what I'm going to entitle this lesson, you know. And then another, you know, thought that came to mind is what? You know, that Lauryn Hill song, what? You know, ready or not, here I come. You can't hide. Like, you're not going to be able to hide from the Lord, man. You can't. It doesn't matter what you do. So I'm just going to bring out a few scriptures. Again, Lord willing, this is edifying. So, Slakia, I'm going to start with the book of Amos, chapter 9 and verse 2. It says, though they dig into hell, thence shall mine hand take them. Though they climb up to the heaven, it's like though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. And right, the main point being verse 3. But what, man, this is what these people, you know, primarily, you know, the elites, because that's mainly who this applies to. But even, you know, certain of these people, you know, that are well-to-do are going to seek to do these things, right? You know, they're going to seek to hide themselves from the wrath to come. But they're not going to be able to hide, you know. But just like it says, you know, though they dig in the hell, meaning, you know, it's talking about in the earth, even though you have these, you know, underground bases, you know, these bunkers, you know, it's still not going to save you, you know. And just like the clip that you've seen, though, you know, these people are fleeing into the mountains, into bunkers, it's still not going to save you, you know, because you're going to flee into the mountains and you're really, you know, you're going to die up there, you know. Yeah, you'll be able to sustain yourself for a period of time, but you're going to die up there in the mountains, man. You know, you'll be better off just dealing with the shit, you know, like everyone else, you know. But people are going to seek to try to save their own lives, you know. And then verse 4, you know, just going into, you know, how they're going to be taken into captivity, which you are, the elites, you know. So you people that seek to try to, you know, flee into these mountains, you don't understand that you're just, you know, you're going to die up there, you know. So I'm going to jump to the book of 2nd Esdras chapter 15, and I'm going to start at verse 57. It says, thy children shall die of hunger, and thou shalt fall through the sword, and thy city shall be broken down, and all thine shall perish with the sword in the field. You know, a lot of people are going to die, you know, primarily, you know, of the famine, you know, dying by the sword, which the modern day sword is the gun, you know. So a lot of people are going to, you know, die, you know. It says the city shall be broken. And again, man, all of these major cities, they're all going to go down, you know. Verse 58, and this is the point. It says, they that be in the mountains shall die of hunger, and eat their own flesh, and drink their own blood, for very hunger of bread and thirst of water. And right, man, this is what's going to happen to you people that try to hide in these mountains, man. You're going to die up there. Yeah, you know, whatever food and water you have, you know, to sustain yourself for however long, how much more when, you know, your neighbor, even if they're not literally, you know, next door neighbors, but you see, you know, they had their, you know, trucks and their RVs in there, right? You know, and their mobile homes. What's going to happen when, you know, one family runs out of food? They're going to look to take whatever food they have from the next family, you know, and so on and so forth until, you know, again, you all kill each other or eat each other, man. You know, you people literally are going to rip each other to shreds, man. So I'm going to jump up to verse 18. Really, yeah, I'll just start up, at verse 14. But the main point I want to get is, verse 19. But 2nd Esdras 15 and 14, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, It says, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So, right, once this society fully collapses, people aren't going to regard what, these people in positions of power have to say. The mayor, the governor, the senator, or even the president himself, they're not going to care, because people are going to be in straits, meaning, a position of difficulty. Everybody's going to be out of a job. Nobody's going to have any money, and everyone isn't going to have any food, So what? People are going to look to take whatever food they have from the next person so that they can survive, Verse 17, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Martial law, which is coming. Which, this guy, Captain Zariat, which I'm going to do a separate video on that, man, because what he said was just straight madness. But martial law, is coming. It's coming very soon, man. Again, probably sooner than we think. So we'll see, exactly how things are going to play out, because now they're trying to take away what? The First Amendment, free speech or freedom of speech, So anybody that pretty much speaks out against, DT or the U.S., it's like it speaks out against DT or the United States government or, MAGA, they're going to be labeled as a DT, domestic fill in the blank, so persecution is coming. Verse 18, it says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed and men shall be afraid. And right, it's going to be so bad out here that men are going to be afraid. And if men are going to be afraid, how much more the women? Women are going to be, they're going to lose their minds. But again, men are going to be afraid, And it says the houses shall be destroyed because, again, people are going to raid other people's houses, especially if they know that this particular person has food. Like, for example, you have these doomsday preppers, that stock up, food and water, guns, ammo, these different things. But what? They're broadcasting it to the world and letting them know what they have. And even if they don't give up their exact location, somebody that knows them, can trail them one day and figure out exactly where they have their goods stored, and then when that time comes, they're going to go and, handle their business. So this is what's going to happen to you people in the mountains, man. Verse 19 is the point. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and shall spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And right, this is mainly going to be happening in the cities, because again, it says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. So again, people, that are next door neighbors or neighbors with, people in their neighborhood, that were once, cool, that's all going to go out the window. So if, Bob knows that, John across the street has, some food stored up, he's going to go and take whatever food he has from him, just throwing some random names out there, but this is what's going to take place, because again, it says they shall, destroy their houses with the sword. America is the most armed nation, or better yet, America has the highest, civilian armed, like I'm trying to word this correctly, but pretty much, the good majority of people, I can't put a percentage on it, but the good majority of people here in America own firearms, whether legally or illegally, there's more guns than people here in America. So there's going to be a lot of shootings that are going to be taking place, and that's how people are going to raid each other's houses, with the gun, taking whatever food and water the next person has, man. And it says why? Because of the lack of bread, the famine, which is being orchestrated right now as we speak, with these different things, because again, the cost of fuel is going up. So therefore, if these trucks that take diesel fuel aren't able to, or these truck drivers, better yet, if they aren't able to afford the fuel, to fill up their trucks to bring in the goods into these cities, and bringing in food to the grocery stores, then what? Whatever food is there is going to increase in price, because you still have, ICE out here, terrorizing the Northern Kingdom. This is why you have a lot of Issacharites that are afraid to go to work, because they don't want to get, thrown into one of those detention centers, which there's been reports of people that have died, and, young girls that are being, RAPED. Yeah, wait, let me see. RAPE, yeah, RAPED, So these are the things that are happening in these detention centers, right? And who's usually known for working in these fields, bringing in the produce, that we get in the grocery stores? It's usually Issachar, that are out there in the fields gathering, the different fruits and vegetables. But now, a lot of these fields are empty because they're scared. They don't want to be, arrested. And then farmers are also losing, their farmland. They're growing food, but what? They don't have anybody to gather it. Or they have to, kill off their livestock. It's a lot going on, man. So a famine is being orchestrated. And you people that are trying to save your lives, man, you're going to lose your lives, which, it says that, in the Gospels, but I'm going to specifically get the one in the book of Mark, chapter 8, in verse 35. And this is red letters, so this is our Lord Yahweh Shai speaking. It says, "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my name," it's like it, for my sake and the gospels, the same shall save it. So right, those people out there that are trying to save their lives are going to lose their lives. And those of us that lose our lives, we're going to find it, we're going to live, we're going to be saved, Lord willing, we be of the elect, because that's how, one way people are going to try to save their lives, by storing up food and water, which again, there's nothing wrong with, but, ultimately that's not going to save us. We're going to need divine intervention, but that's how, the people of the world think. They think carnally, so I need to, stock up on food and stock up on water, get my hands on, different weapons and things of that sort. But again, these people are going to lose their lives, man. Why? Because they don't have what we have. We have the Lord, man. These people don't have the Lord, man. They damn sure don't have faith, This is why we're hoping to be of the elect, just like it says in the scriptures, put on therefore as the elect, because we know what's about to take place. This is why we're ahead of these people. We already know shit is about to get, crazy out here, Violence is going to increase significantly. And people aren't ready for it. There's no amount of physical preparation that you can do to try to get ready for what's about to take place, because again, it's gonna come unexpectedly, man. Again, even if we do have, a little bit of food stored, a little bit of water, again, just like the apostles have said, just like other brothers have said, man, who knows where we're gonna be once all hell finally breaks loose. We don't know if we'll be able to get to our things, man. We may be at work, because once all hell breaks loose, what? The freeways are going to be jam-packed. Why? Because everybody's going to try to leave the cities, but they're not going to be able to. Again, 2 Esdras 15:17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. People are going to try to flee out of the cities, and they're not going to be able to leave, So who knows exactly how this thing is going to play out? But a lot of these people, they're going to starve. They're going to eat each other. Those people in the mountain, that's exactly what they're going to do. Yeah, they're going to sustain themselves. Each family that has food and water, they're going to sustain themselves for a period of time. But what? Their resources are going to run out. Food is going to run out. Water is going to run out. Whatever fuel they have, is going to run out. All of those people are going to die. Each and every last one of those families that are in that mountain bunker are going to die. It doesn't matter if it's reinforced. If no one can get in or out, you're all going to die in there. And it's just that simple. So I'm going to end it with this. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 6. And I'm going to start at verse 15. It says, "And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?" And this is talking about the elites, man. Because it's listing off the different people that are going to be in these bunkers, because again, the elites, they're smart. They have their bunkers outside of America because they know what's coming to this place. Great destruction, and anybody that has a bunker in America, you're going to die, because America is going to be completely wasted. Isaiah, the 34th chapter, gives you a very vivid description of how this place is going to look after that fire finally goes out, man, because this place is going to burn for a while, man. It's going to burn for a while. We don't know exactly how long, but it's going to burn, man. But once it's done, then what, man? That's it. There aren't going to be any survivors here in America. Nothing will be left here. But what? This is what the elites are seeking to do. If they're not in those bunkers already, this is what they're going to do. They're going to gather, their servants and go into hiding. They're going to hide in their bunkers. They're going to go into the, just like it says in Amos, though they dig in the hell, so what? Even though they're in these deep underground bases, whether it's in the ground, in the sea, or hell, even if they're in the damn space stations, man, they're going to try to hide from the Lord, from the Heavenly Father and from, our Lord Yahweh Shai. But they're not going to be able to, man, because they know that the day of the Lord is coming. They know this. But just like it says, in the scriptures that, the Lord sent for many fishers, but he's also going to send, his hunters as well, which is his elect, man, his elect men. So, yeah, the elites, they're going to be preserved, so that they can go into captivity after the destruction of Babylon, But the Lord is going to send the elect to go and grab them and take them out of these bunkers and put them in a captivity, So you can't hide, man. You cannot hide. The Lord knows he is. These people don't realize they're fulfilling biblical prophecy by doing these things, man. And it's hilarious. It's frankly hilarious seeing these people panic before all hell even breaks loose, man. Like, these people are really bugging out here, Meanwhile, the men of the Lord, we're just, doing our thing, working our jobs, and then just living, until this place collapses fully. But these people, they're losing their shit already, It's a beautiful thing to see. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from, And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say, Shalom.